A space to speak your mind with Cornwall Mind for better mental health.
Happy New Year and welcome to the January show of A Space to Speak Your Mind. We're a radio show and podcast about mental health made by people with lived experience in association with Cornwall Mind. We do cover subjects that some listeners may find distressing. For more information, help and support, please visit cornwallmind.org. And if you'd like to be part of the show or send us your thoughts, we'd love to hear from you too. I'm Richard, and on this month's show, in the second on our series of end-of-life care, Kathryn Bowman, who is a senior nurse for Marie Curie in Camborne, will be chatting with me. Lucy from Cornwall Mind will be here to tell us about the Move for Mind campaign, which is underway. Professor Catherine Loveday, psychologist from the University of Westminster, will be explaining how our mental health can be improved by listening to and playing music. As energy prices in our home are rising and having an impact on our mental health, I'll be speaking to property expert Kate Faulkner and Iagan MacNeil, Head of Policy at Smart Energy GB, on how we can keep costs down, and we'll find out about Community Energy Plus for those that are struggling.
A space to speak your mind with Cornwall Mind for better mental health.
Now, a quarter of people feel playing an instrument can improve mood, and playing a musical instrument is in the top 10 for both improving relaxation and better mental health. And being able to play the piano or guitar was seen as the most popular way to relax for men. So Professor Catherine Loveday, who's a psychologist from the University of Westminster, great to have you on the show. And what is it about playing an instrument that you think helps us to change our mood?
Well, music is really fundamental to us. It's a way that we connect with other people, but it also really engages and immerses us. And actually, music is the kind of language of emotion, really. So we can express ourselves really, really well with music. So listening to music is great because we can kind of connect with other people, but being able to produce music has kind of additional benefits because we can express ourselves, but also it really engages us. So it becomes a very sort of mindful activity in a sense, and it stops the anxieties and concerns and worries that you get when we naturally start to daydream. So I think it's a really, really positive activity for people.
Yeah, for me, I've been around music all my life. I've worked within music production, but I've never played an instrument up until last year, although I tried at school, but I wasn't very successful. But during the first lockdown, I managed to get a cheap keyboard and learned a few chords. And do you know what? Even just having a few chords that I could play along a song just made me feel so much better and made me feel as if I was learning something and just really passing the time and gaining a new experience. So it can be something as simple as just learning a few chords on a keyboard or a guitar.
Yeah, absolutely. I think people are kind of more afraid of it than they need to be. So one of the things that this survey by Fender showed is that 46% of people are scared of failure, and also embarrassment and shyness gets in people's way. And over a third of people felt that they were too old. And it's a real shame that these barriers are in place because actually so many people want to learn new skills, but they're kind of frightened of it. And you're right that with music, you really only need a couple of chords. If you can strum a couple of chords on the guitar, you can already play, a number of songs. And actually, the Fender Play have this way of being able to present lessons that's quite short. So they're just a few minutes at a time. You can do them in your own space. So there's no kind of embarrassment. And there's lots of kind of little tricks to keep drawing you back in to make you want to do the next lesson. And I think just that thing of breaking it down into manageable chunks, because for so many of us, I think taking on a new skill is just so daunting, and particularly a musical skill, which sometimes you're quite put off by at school, aren't we? We kind of learn it at school and it's taught in a very rigid way. So I think being able to break it down, a skill down into manageable chunks like this so that it doesn't feel too daunting is really, really important. We don't want to overwhelm people with something new. We just want to deliver it in these kind of small packages that people gradually make progress and start to feel good about themselves.
Yeah, and it is that as well. When you get those small achievements and you pass on to the next level, it really does help. But what do you think really makes learning music more attractive than possibly other hobbies that we might take on?
Well, I think although people are scared of music, when they can do it, immediately it makes you part of something. So other skills don't necessarily join you up with people in the same way. And I think what music does is that if you can literally play a couple of chords on a guitar, you can sit in a group of people and you can be part of what's going on, and you can be contributing in a way where you're not too much the focus of attention, but where you're part of it. It's like singing in a choir in a sense. It's being part of the whole. And we know from so much research that lowers your cortisol. It makes people feel more relaxed. And it also raises levels of oxytocin, which makes you feel connected and bonded with people and has a very sort of calming influence on us. So I think music allows us to really kind of build those connections with other people.
And it can lead on to other things you're saying there about the social aspects of meeting new people and bringing new experiences from that as well. So just being in a peer group and supporting each other can also bring benefits.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing about maybe with something like a musical instrument, if you can get over the initial learning stages on your own in a quiet space, then actually you're more confident to go out and then start joining in with other people. So you can kind of build that confidence up quietly on your own at home. And then when you're in a social situation and maybe people start kind of getting the guitars out and joining in, you can actually be part of it. Or people may even choose to kind of get to that point and then want to start up their own band. And I did that all the way through my 20s. I was in a band and it was a fantastic experience, really.
Which do you think are the most popular songs that help us relax? I know there's a few that have been gone through the survey here. So which are the most popular songs, would you say?
Two of the ones that came out top were Here Comes the Sun by the Beatles, which is a favourite of mine, and also Wonderwall by Oasis. They were particularly relaxing songs, and All of Me by John Legend. They were ones that people found to be particularly relaxing. And it's interesting to me that something like Here Comes the Sun, which is quite an old song, obviously, but was popular right across the generations. And that fits really nicely with some of my research. Older songs are sometimes nostalgic and they can connect us with our parents and with our grandparents even, but they give us a sense of feeling quite grounded. So newer songs are great, and it's fantastic that we've still got new bands coming through, new guitarists showing themselves. But I think it's really interesting that people connect with these older songs that maybe give a sense of comfort and nostalgia and so on.
So yeah, some of the older songs, I noticed there's a couple of Coldplay songs in there as well. So yeah, a whole mixture. So depending on what your preference is as far as what you kind of like, whether you do like the older music or just being able to play along with some of the tunes that you're more familiar with. I know you've teamed up with Fender, so how can they help enhance a person's learning experience as well?
So what Fender have done is they've put together this beginners hub, which is a really kind of great one-stop shop. So it allows people to help find what their first guitar might be. It helps them with the really basic stuff like tuning. And it also gives them access to Fender Play, which is this really sort of brilliantly packaged up set of lessons that allows you to learn in as little as 2 or 3 minutes a day at a time. And it makes it feel more manageable. And also there are individual videos with guitarists so that you feel that you're getting this kind of one-to-one tuition, but in your own space and at your own pace. So I think it's really nice to have a way of being able to learn the guitar or the bass or the ukulele, whichever you want to learn, in this kind of private but really effective way.
And as we're coming to the new year as well, maybe it's a time to take on something new. And if we have got more time on our hands during the winter months, it's a good pastime to do. Now, we talked about the songs that kind of help us relax, but also the songs that are the ones that people want to learn. So what are the songs that have come up in the top as far as the ones that people want to actually play themselves?
Well, Hotel California was actually the most popular song that people want. And that, again, it's one of those older songs, but there's so much fantastic guitaring in that song, isn't there? It's a really appealing song. The point is that even a song like that doesn't have to be out of people's reach. You know, you might not be able to play that in a week, but I think if people work their way through a series of lessons slowly, then they probably will.
Yeah, and I do see the number 2 on the list is quite a favourite of a lot of people, especially with the movies that came out recently, Queen Bohemian Rhapsody. Quite a complicated song because of the different sections within that. But as you're saying, you can learn over a period of time and you can progress up to that point. But that's a real challenge. That's something to really aim for, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's also a great song in that it reaches right across the generations again. And actually, in a research study that we've done, we found Bohemian Rhapsody was one of the most easily recognised tunes. So I think, again, it's about this comfort and nostalgia and what feels safe for people and what makes them feel connected.
You know what? I'm going to dust down the keyboard. I'm going to give it a go. So just tell us, if we're inspired to start playing, where's the best place to find this information and to get started?
So if people go to fender.com and look for the Beginners Hub, they will find everything they need there to get going.
Professor Catherine Loveday, so good to speak to you, and I hope you have a happy new year.
Thank you, and you.
Cornwall Mind also runs a music group in Bowman, and you can find out more at cornwallmind.org.
A space to speak your mind.
It's a space to speak your mind, and it's now time to hear Jess with her thoughts for the new year.
As we go into 2022 with COVID still impacting our lives and things seeming so uncertain and confusing, it might be hard to stay positive. Your Voice, Cornwall CIC, have compiled a list of 22 things to look forward to in 22. Not all will apply to everyone, but I hope that you all find at least one thing to look forward to. And they are as follows. Hugging. Everyone likes to have a big squeeze. Well, most people anyway. The sound of nature in the morning. I really enjoy listening to the birds singing, that's for sure. Summer skies. Beautiful. Putting music up loud. Put your favourite tunes on. And dance around the kitchen like nobody's watching. Or even if they are watching. Just do whatever you want. Freestyle. Night skies. We have some beautiful night skies down here in Cornwall. Go to a really lovely natural place and just look up, lie there, look up to the sky and see all the beautiful stars. The daffodils in spring. See as the new growth starts to come through. A good storm. We all love a good storm to clear the humid air. Treat yourself. It doesn't have to be a big pamper day. It can just be treat yourself to a donut, a pasty, watching your favourite show at the theatre, not doing the washing up. Have a binge on TV box sets. Your favourite ice cold drink. Who doesn't love sitting on one of the benches outside the watering hole at Perranporth or another one of your favourite beer gardens and having a beer or a nice ice cold drink? Handsome. The spring air. Let the spring air flow through your house. Open up all your windows and your doors. And let that lovely fresh air come through your house. That is handsome. Cracking a craft. Yeah, don't we all just love it when we master something? Lying on the grass, just breathing in the fresh air. Just lying there soaking up the sun. Feeling all that vitamin D against your skin. But don't forget your sun cream. Learning new skills or languages, it's so satisfying. Knowledge is power. Freshly cut grass. Don't we just love it? Laughing until you ache. We love it when our favourite singers release a new song. That can be something really cool to look forward to. Finding love. Could be with a new soulmate, new friends, a fur baby. Finding a new place. What can be your favourite love to hang out? And waking up every morning knowing today is a blank page and you can create it. You can write it. You can form the art of your life. It's yours to make it. I haven't read all 22 things what were listed, and I did adapt them a little in my own little way. And I'd also like to tell you a little bit about Your Voice, just in case you're not familiar with it. Your Voice is an organisation that supports women's mental health across Cornwall. If you want to find out a bit more, you can refer to Your Voice Cornwall CIC Facebook page. They've got their full list of the 22 things to be hopeful for in 22. And maybe you can think of a few things to add on your own. They have wellness groups. One which is going to be starting up again in Truro at Colours Cafe on Tuesday the 11th of January from 7 o'clock till 9 o'clock in the evening. Another one's a daytime wellness group for women, which is on Monday the 10th of January, 11:30 to 1:30. And another is Houston's, which is Thursday the 6th of January, 7 till 9. All of the groups are judgment-free. Everybody is welcome. You can find out more details on their website or their Facebook page.
A space to speak your mind with Cornwall Mind for better mental health.
So it's a space to speak your mind, and I'm joined by Kathryn Bowman, who's a senior nurse for Marie Curie in Cornwall. Kathryn, good to have you with us.
Thanks for having me.
Whereabouts are you in Cornwall?
So our office is based in Camborne. It's relatively new. We had the space just about 18 months ago, sort of a month before COVID started. So we're slowly returning back to the office now, which is great. It's nice to actually see my team members face to face. It's nice to sort of have a little bit of normality again and see each other.
So we're talking about end of life. So why do you think talking about end of life is such a tricky subject?
I think it can be really difficult because I think just initiating the conversation in itself is difficult. I've found from experience in this job that once the conversations start, it's a lot easier, but it's just finding the right time or the right words to use. And also knowing if the person's ready to have that conversation is also quite difficult. And, whether it's you speaking to a loved one or yourself that's, maybe have a terminal diagnosis. And I guess it feels quite real, doesn't it, once you start having those conversations? And I think that's probably one of the biggest things. Once you start having those conversations, it's out there, isn't it?
Yeah, it's almost like we don't want to have it because it does make it real, and it is such a difficult conversation to have. But you've carried out some research and you've found that there's quite a lot of, I don't know if there's misconceptions, but just people don't quite get the terms right about this kind of thing, do they?
No, not at all. And I mean, I was having a look at the statistics, and I'd like to say they surprised me, but I don't think they do. I think end-of-life terminology as well can be quite confusing about what each thing means. And I think that's either then puts people off talking about it, or it scares them because they don't really know what that term is, what it means for them or their family member.
So, I mean, some of the terms like palliative care and hospice care and end-of-life care, could you talk us through the differences between those?
Yeah, of course. So palliative care is when you get a palliative diagnosis. So that can also mean continuing with some treatments to sort of make your condition, doesn't always cure it, but sometimes to help with pain or something like that. Hospice care, some people go to the hospice to have some sort of management of their symptoms. Some people stay at the hospice for the very end of their life, but some people will just go there for a short period just to get their symptoms controlled and then will come home. And end of life care is the care that's provided, in those last few weeks of somebody's life. So that could be at the hospice, it could be in your own home, it could be in a nursing home, and wherever that person decides to be really for their end of life. And then it's looking at making sure their symptoms are managed and that they're comfortable and supporting the people around them as well.
And we also come across the legal terms as well, things like power of attorney or living will, and sometimes that can confuse people.
Yeah, it can. And I think even as a health professional, sometimes, unless you're doing that regularly, it's quite daunting. And I think that's where Marie Curie can really help. And they can help anybody, they've got their helplines or their website, and it can really just help give you that information around those legal terms that you may not quite understand.
And so when it comes to the actual subject around end of life, how do you think we need to change our attitudes?
I think it's just about being open and honest. The thought of a loved one getting to the end of their life or something happening to them and you're not knowing what their wishes are can actually be quite distressing, and more distressing than maybe having that initial conversation about, would you like to be ventilated? Would you like to have resuscitation? Where would you like to be at the end of your life? Rather than guessing or just hoping that you've got the right thing for your loved one. So yeah, I think the problem is starting that conversation, knowing the right words to use. But once those conversations get initiated, I think they do come a lot easier. And you do find out things about people that maybe you didn't know, that isn't something you would have done as a dying wish for them.
And of course, if we're not talking about that, it can affect the care that someone does receive at the end of their life.
Absolutely. If you've got a spiritual need or something like that, if you haven't expressed that, something that you may want around somebody around you, or those important things that are important to people might be missed. And I think that's really sad.
And obviously when these things come to pass and when we're in those last few weeks, it's very difficult to think of the questions that we need to ask. So it might even be worth writing down, or what would you say would be the questions really we should be asking for those that someone close to them is nearing the end of their life?
I mean, I think it's really individual and it's difficult to say have a set list, but where would they like to be at their end of their life? Would they like to stay at home? Some people don't. They would feel more comfortable being in a hospice or in a nursing home with staff around them. Would you like to carry on with having antibiotics as an active treatment? Who would you like to have around you? Do you have a religious belief that you'd like someone to be there? Also, little things like they might have a dog. Who would you like to look after your dog if something happens to you? Because, people do pass away and they have animals. No one's had that conversation. Where would you like that dog to go, or your cat? Even just little things like that can make a really big difference.
And there's something called the Advance Directive, isn't there? Can you explain what that is?
It's a legal document about what you would and wouldn't like to happen to you. Really states your wishes at the end of your life. So it's a really good document to really make it very clear around the legal side of things and, in your medical treatment, rather than just a conversation you've had with somebody in your house. So it's, whether you want to be resuscitated, that kind of thing.
And currently going through Parliament, there is the Health and Care Bill, which is hoping to give that conversation about personal needs and preferences for people at the end of life. So that's currently happening at the moment, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And we're hoping that will go through soon. And I just think that will also make a really big difference about people getting the care and support that they really need in the place that they want it.
And what services does Marie Curie provide for those that are struggling to cope?
So for everybody, there is the support and bereavement. There's a phone number that they can phone, and there's also the website they can go on, which is fantastic. And then in Cornwall, we provide some overnight care for people that not necessarily at the very end of their life, but have had a terminal diagnosis. And then we also are commissioned to provide end-of-life care for people that are in the last sort of few weeks of their life as well.
Is that within the Camborne region, or is that across Cornwall?
The daycare bit is just in the west of Cornwall. Cornwall, but the overnight care is for the whole of Cornwall. And obviously then the bereavement and the information service is available to anybody at all. You don't have to be receiving any Marie Curie care. It's open to the general public.
Where can people get that information if they need it?
So there's the website, which is mariecurie.org.uk, or the phone number is 0800 090 2309.
And looking to the future, there's going to be a National Day of Reflection, which is happening on the 23rd of March, which is hoping to support the millions of people that have been bereaved during the pandemic as well. So really important day in the calendar coming up.
It really is. And I think it's so important to mark these things, especially with, like you say, having COVID and the pandemic. People haven't been able to grieve or haven't been able to get together to celebrate people's lives. So I think it's a really good day to reflect on people that have lost loved ones.
Kathryn, Bowman, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
A space to speak your mind.
And now it's time to hear from Jess with a poem for the new year.
I thought I'd read you all a poem. It's quite appropriate really for this time of year. Well, I thought so. Everyone has their own interpretation of poems and artwork, so I'll leave it to your own discretion. It's called Time to Be Slow. It's by John O'Donoghue. This is the time to be slow. Lie low to the wall until the bitter weather passes. Try, as best you can, not to let the wild brush of doubt scrape from your heart all sense of yourself and your hesitant light. If you remain generous, time will come good, and you will find your feet again on fresh pastures of promise, where the air will be kind and blushed with beginning. That was Time to Be Slow, a poem by John Donoghue. He's an Irish poet and philosopher. Anne Taylor introduced me to this beautiful poem on our last Cornwall Mind catch-up writing group. If you're interested in writing for your well-being, you can contact Cornwall Mind on 01208 892 855. Keeping on the theme of writing, if writing is something that interests you or you'd like to give it a go, it can be so beneficial to your mental health. An idea is writing down 3 beautiful things. Every day, record 3 things that have given you pleasure. It doesn't have to be big or small. For example, 1. The fog has closed. I whirled off to the street. 2. Finding out the dishwasher didn't go off last night, so there is no need to empty it. 3. Alex says, shall I take the key and run home and let the Sainsbury's man in? These are all examples taken from the 3 Beautiful Things blog, which is the original site. You can find more on 3beautifulthings.blogs.com. It can be a good idea to do this in the morning to try and be in a positive frame of mind. Some people might find it useful to have a book to jot down 3 things they're grateful for, which could be done before going to bed.
A space to speak your mind with Cornwall Mind for better mental health.
It's a space to speak your mind, and we're looking forward to the Move for Mind Challenge. It started in December, but it is happening throughout January and February as well. So we've got Lucy here to tell us a little bit more about it.
Hi, Richard. Thanks ever so much. So we're getting involved in Move for Mind. It's a 30-day exercise and fundraising challenge, and it's a very personal challenge. You can take on whatever exercise goals and aims that you wish to set for yourself. It's meant to be inclusive, meant to be very personal, but actually, whilst you're pledging to Move for Mind, you're actually helping us to raise awareness, break the stigma, and raise funds so we can keep supporting those people in our community that need support.
And it's a 30-day challenge, and there's lots of ways that you can take part.
That's right, Richard. You could set yourself a running challenge. It could be a mile a day. It could be a 2K walk with your dog. You might want to swim every day. You might just want to do some yoga. It's meant to be something that's accessible for all of us. And those personal exercise goals are very bespoke to where we are in our own lives. And it's about sometimes getting into that new healthy habit. It's a new year. We're looking forward, trying to make small adjustments in our lives to keep us happy and healthy and well. And actually, by committing to this event, it's something that hopefully will stick and will provide us with those longer term active goals in the future. We've got lots of ideas for you in what you can take on. I'm probably going to involve the dog in mine because it works for him as well. Everyone that raises £50 will get sent a Move for Mind t-shirt. And if you're able to raise £150 for us, you'll get a medal as well. And it's something that other local minds are taking part in, as well as National Mind. that even though the money is being raised will stay in Cornwall, obviously this is going to be a much bigger partnership that's happening across the country as well.
A great time at the start of the year to do this. So it is a 30-day challenge. You can register right now, though, and you can take part at any point, really, in the next sort of month or so. Is that right?
Absolutely, Richard. It doesn't have to be 30 days consecutive. Pace it at your own life and your own schedules and your own abilities. But we do ask that everybody's finished by the end of February. So you've still got a couple of months to get started. Keep in touch with us. We can give you ideas and support along the way. You can be part of a great support network nationally as well to motivate each other. But get moving for Mind, help us raise funds, help us raise awareness, and actually start the new year off with something really positive to focus on.
And just remind us where people can go to get involved.
Check out all the information on our website, which is cornwallmind.org. You can also look on our Facebook page as well, Cornwall Mind. There'll be further links on how to register and sign up. There's no entry fee. It is a fundraising challenge. We are asking people to seek sponsorship for their efforts. And obviously, hopefully, we can be sending you T-shirts and medals to thank you for your engagement as well.
That's fantastic. So it's Move for Mind with Cornwall Mind. Thank you so much, Lucy, for joining us.
Thanks ever so much, Richard, and good luck, everyone. Happy New Year.
A space to speak your mind.
Now I'm joined by Kate Faulkner, who's a property expert, and Iagan MacNeil, who's head of policy at Smart Energy GB. Now, in a recent One Poll survey, it was revealed that half of renters are worried about how they will pay their bills this winter, and 50% admit these concerns are having a negative impact on their mental health. So, Kate, how worried should we be about rising energy costs?
Well, I do think for renters, this is a really tough one because it was a bit of shock for all of us, I think, because it sort of felt it happened so quickly when we saw that the energy costs were going to rise. And of course, they went up by quite a lot as well, depending on what deal you're on. So it's understandable that it's a worry, but there is some good news. And the good news is that one of the things you can do to help manage those bills is you can fit a smart meter at no additional cost. What many renters don't realise is that if they are the bill payer, which quite a lot of them will be, then they actually have a right to a smart meter, although we'd always recommend you have a chat with your landlord. And again, for some that might be worried about doing that, some previous research we did shows that 76% of landlords would be happy for their tenants to do so. And what that does is it allows you to start to understand where all of your energy in your property is going, and therefore what you can do to help start saving you money. And I think the other two things that I like about the smart meter to help reduce people's worries and fears is, firstly, I don't know about you, but I was really bad at giving my meter readings. So I always ended up on estimates and paid a lot extra. So it means that your meter readings will be sent automatically. So that's another worry that you can take off your list. And then the other thing is, you might not actually, once you get your smart meter, you might be worrying more about your utility bills that you need to. So when I had mine fitted, I was actually quite surprised at how little my heating was costing. I thought it would be a lot more. So I got a lot of reassurance from fitting a smart meter.
I think the good thing is as well with a smart meter is you can actually see from day to day. So if you're using certain appliances or you're using more heating, you can actually see on a daily basis, even hour by hour, how much you're using and which things in your house might actually be using more energy than you think.
Absolutely. And I think that was my big learning. You can be really surprised at some things. Yes, I was doing my cooking and I have like a cookathon. So I do a whole day and I cook about 30 meals and then I bung them in the freezer and take them out when I need. And I never realised actually the cost of doing that. But of course, when you put it over 30 meals, it's still not that bad. So I've really learned a lot and you don't have to wait. And I think the nice thing is the energy company is getting a lot more information, which will help them to provide a better service in the future, which may help manage bills better in the future, but you're getting that information too. So it's a real sort of co-sharing thing, and it puts you in a lot more control than you are if you don't have one.
I'm bringing in from Iagan's point of view as well. So from Smart Energy GB, you're obviously encouraging people to get the smart meters. So is it really just a case of being able to take more control of our energy bills, and are there other benefits as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, getting control of your energy is a really important one. Having sight of your energy, as you say, on an hourly or a daily basis is really important. But what that enables you to do is then to change your behavior on the back of that. And it could be that you shift your energy patterns, or maybe just fall into bad habits. Do you do a half load in your washing machine? Have you got lights on all over the place? Do you have loads of things on standby rather than switched off at the wall? So lots of bad habits that we all fall into all of a sudden become very visible. And you then are able to adapt your behavior on the back of that and look at different ways of doing things. For example, we met someone a couple of years ago, and she's got 2 kids who are madly into sport. They were playing sport every day, and she constantly had the washing machine and the tumble dryer on in order so that the kids had their sports kit ready for the next day. And when she got a smart meter, it kind of freaked her out because the washing machine and tumble dryer being on so often was becoming quite expensive. What she was then able to do was go out and buy extra kit, and she bought an old-fashioned clothes horse. So she then adapted her behavior, and she said within 6 months of buying that extra kit and the clothes horse, she had saved the money because she wasn't using, especially the tumble dryer, as often. By having that visibility of your energy consumption, you can change your behavior on the back of it. And it doesn't mean you're sitting there in the cold and the dark. It just means that you adapt your behavior so that you're just using energy at a better time. You're also able to perhaps, when hopefully the energy market returns to normal, able to negotiate good energy deals because you know what your energy data actually is. The good thing is as well, by reducing your energy costs and your energy usage, you're also playing your part towards being as energy efficient as we're all trying to do. And as we're all trying to achieve net zero by 2050, by getting a smart meter, adapting your behavior, reducing your energy consumption and your costs, helps you to play your part towards fighting climate change as well. So there's many benefits that come from the rollout of smart meters and you getting one installed.
And Kate, there's also other things that we can do within our home, such as LED lighting. I know I've gone around and changed all the light bulbs, and every time the lights go, I go and get an LED lighting to replace it. So it's just those simple things that we can do that also can save us money without having to forfeit anything.
Yeah, absolutely. And one little trick I found earlier was, I think I've got to a sort of 4 or 5 year old boiler, and it's got a thing called a little eco mode on it. And I didn't know that my boiler was keeping hot water ready for me for whenever I needed it. And of course that costs money. And if you just press that little button, it turned that off, and that can save you a little bit of money. And it hasn't impacted on me at all. Things that you might need to have a chat with your landlord about. I'm a big fan of thermostats. I use those a lot to control the heat in my property because it's a large property, just me and my 2 dogs. So we worry about the rooms that we're in mostly. And then with a landlord hat on, what's really important, if you're looking at renovating a property, this is the cheapest time ever to try and get some insulation in. And that's one of the biggest paybacks. It's not actually that expensive to do. It can reduce heat loss by about 25% just through the roof. And the good news is that, of course, the cheaper the utility bills for your tenant, the more likely they are to be able to afford your rent. And the less likely they are as well to worry. And that's something, you should be concerned about as a landlord.
I think it's interesting you were saying about the thermostats on radiators. I was reading somewhere that if we just turn our thermostats down just 1 or 2 degrees, because sometimes they're sort of fighting to get to a certain temperature, so we're actually using more energy than we need to. So if we keep it maybe at a constant or even take it 1 or 2 degrees down, it's actually saving us money in the long run without any noticeable difference.
Yeah, and the difficulty I find with that, if I'm honest, is that put me in the Caribbean and I'm comfortable. So I like a really warm room, but I don't need to warm every single room that I'm in. So if you can manage with the whole house being on a lower heat, that's great. But for me, what it allows me to do is have my real home comforts without spending a fortune. And of course, I know I'm not spending a fortune because I can see the impact that has via my smart meter. So that's something that's really helpful. So I think what you've highlighted is how we use our utility bills is really personal to us. And of course, it's personal to the property that you are in. So what that smart meter allows is for you to really understand your energy needs and the energy needs of that property and how it impacts on that. And therefore, that can help start a conversation with your landlord, because your landlord is going to have to, at the moment, they can't rent a property out unless they're exempt, unless it's got an EPC rating of E or above. But the expectation is that in the future, and not too distant future, a few years away, they're going to have to raise that to a C, which is quite a big jump. So it's in the interest of both landlords and tenants to really get to grips with their energy usage and then work together to reduce it so that both of them can benefit.
You were saying before about if there's a new boiler, it may have an eco mode put in, or if you are looking to replace, make sure that you are replacing it with one of the new boilers that do have these functions.
Yeah, definitely. And looking at all the appliances, because, as we said earlier, things like washing machines and in particular tumble dryers can take up quite a lot of your utility costs. So again, do you need a tumble dryer in that property? Is there something better that the landlord could fit? Space to put a clothes horse, for example, and, in a nice warm room or something like that you can save that bit of energy, even putting, for the summer, putting a washing line outside, things like that. The small things don't really cost that much, but they can make a big difference to the utility bills.
So we just really need to just think a little bit more about these things. So Iagan, I'm just wondering if people want some more information or they've heard what we're talking about today, is there somewhere they can go to receive more of this?
If you're looking to get your smart meter installed, have the conversation with your energy supplier, the company you pay your bill to, as they will be the people who will come and install. If you're a renter, but your landlord pays and you're keen to get a smart meter installed, have a conversation with your landlord. Likewise, if you're a landlord and you think there might be confusion as to who gets one installed, speak to your tenants and give them permission, authorize them that it's okay to get a smart meter installed and there'll be no repercussions for doing that. But there's loads of information on our website, which is smartenergygb.org, or you can search for smart meters on your search engine.
So good to hear from you both today. Iagan MacNeil, who's Head of Policy at Smart Energy GB, and also Kate Faulkner, who's a property expert. Great to have you on the show today. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Richard.
Thank you.
And if you are finding that you're struggling with fuel costs at the moment and you live in Cornwall, there's also help from Community Energy Plus. And joining me now is Megan from Cornwall Mind, who's their mental wellbeing caseworker. So Megan, can you just tell me a bit about the project?
Hello. Yeah. So our project is sort of bridging the gap between fuel poverty and at-home energy issues and mental health. And it's not really causal or consequential. It's sort of a chicken and egg thing when you think about mental health with fuel poverty. So what Community Energy Plus were finding, who are an organisation who help support people in fuel poverty, were that it's difficult for people with mental health issues to engage in those things that are going to change their homes. So we made a project that involves being referred on to me and looking at ways that I can support your well-being so that you are strong enough and confident enough to improve your fuel poverty.
And that term fuel poverty does get mentioned quite a bit. So just for people who don't know what the term actually means, can you explain what fuel poverty actually is?
Yeah, so fuel poverty is a bit of an alien concept. I do find that a lot of people ask me what it means. And it is almost an equation of the energy efficiency of your home and the amount of energy that is being expended and the amount of money that's being spent on energy compared to the household income. So that does mean that you could have a relatively adequate income, but the energy efficiency of the home and the costs of heating the home and keeping the home running is drawing the income down to a poverty base.
And if someone is living in fuel poverty, what are those effects that they're going to find?
So there's loads of physiological effects, unfortunately, even heart attack, respiratory issues, those kind of things. There's a lot. But of course, mental health definitely is affected by it. If you think of the things that are symptoms of mental health, like low self-esteem and low self-worth and low self-confidence, lack of motivation, things like that are all affected by the environment that you're in, including the warmth of the home. And fuel poverty itself, or lack of warmth in the home or a cold home, is a known risk factor for suicide. So you can imagine, the other kinds of things that it is linked to with your mental health.
And what steps can you take along with Community Energy Plus if someone comes to you? Are there things that you can do that people might not realise are possible to help fuel poverty?
Definitely over on the Community Energy Plus side, they will look at if you can switch your energy provider, firstly. Sometimes the home might fall in a cheaper price range with a different energy advisor. I do think that being very aware of your energy costs and where they come from and really getting to know the tariff that you're on, that's really important, but very overwhelming. And that's why the project is important, because especially people struggling with their mental health, these things can be so overwhelming that it's not possible to face them. And so we want to get people to the stage where they can face that and be nice and aware about the energy costs and the efficiency of their home. And therefore, in turn, that will improve their well-being. So my job is to essentially help to find ways to improve your well-being so that you can then go on to be more confident with what's going on at the home. But also it's important to remember that the providers do have a level of responsibility as well. So there's codes of practice that they have to follow, including discussing with you and being mindful of individual needs, really.
And I'm thinking as well, it can be, obviously, when it comes to financial matters and when you are struggling, it can be very difficult to make that first step. So really, once people do, there are options available. So for someone particularly living in Cornwall and they're looking to get support, what would your advice be and where should they go?
Firstly, there is Community Energy Plus. They will really help with the nitty-gritty things like switching energy providers, giving you some advice. There's organisations like Step Change who can help you with money management. There's the NEA website, the National Energy Advice website, has heaps of information. Equally, I do understand that is overwhelming. So there is a line that you can call from them as well that will help you go through some things and clarify things. And then, of course, there's mental health support as well. And there's no shame in seeking help as well. We all need it. We all do look for help in many different ways and know that the help is there and it will be reciprocated. And we all need each other to get by, and we can all share the knowledge that we have to improve each other and kind of lean on the sense of community because it is there.
Yeah, so the Community Energy Plus website is cep.org.uk. And if you go through cornwallmind.org, you can find all the information there and to see what help is available. That's all for this month. Join us next time for our February show. And don't forget, for support and more information for better mental health, visit the Cornwall Mind website or call the Mind helpline during office hours on 0300 123 3393. And you can also call the Samaritans anytime for free on 116 123. If you'd like to be part of the show, you can get in contact with us. Just email aspacetospeakyourmind@gmail.com. You can also follow us on Twitter @aspacetospeak or like us on Facebook. And if you missed anything on today's show or you'd like to hear anything from our past shows, you can download the podcast right now on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts from. Just search for A Space to Speak Your Mind.
A Space to Speak Your Mind with Cornwall Mind for better mental health.